All right, I really didn't want to make this video because it's very different than my normal videos, but I just felt like I should get honest about the 2025 Bassmaster Classic. I also felt that it's very important for us as well to be honest when it comes to the fans of bass fishing in general. And so, you know, I did a video series while the Classic was happening, basically summarizing each and every single day of the event. And there were a ton of comments on those videos, as well as just across the board. Like if you look at YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere about the Bassmaster Classic, there are a lot of negative comments towards the Classic. Now, I am not typically a negative person. I don't like to go down that route at all. I was taught at an early age, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it at all. I was also taught by a business guy that, you know, if there's an issue in the business, to get in a room with a whiteboard, meaning get somewhere and figure it out. And so in this video, what I really want to do, I have written down kind of the top 5 things that I continue to see over and over again with the Bassmaster Classic. I just want to give a little bit of my input on it. Also what could potentially make things a little bit better. And also kind of just the reality as bass fishing fans, what we should actually expect. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that now. Real quick before we do, I am running a sale right now over at Fin Fishing. And until the end of March, if you buy one of my USA made sun shirts or a pair of the duck shorts, you will actually get a free Buzzer Rocks Blood Stop formula. So pretty cool product that stops a bleeding fish, helps keep them alive. Anyways, links are down below in the description. I greatly appreciate it. All right, let's talk about these things right here that I have written down. There are 5 main complaints that I kept seeing over and over again about the Bassmaster Classic, the 2025 Bassmaster Classic. And the first one, probably the one that I saw the very most, is commentary. A lot of guys out there complaining about tuning into the Bassmaster Classic just to see, you know, people commentating and not the actual fishing. Now, I do want to start out by saying that I don't know if many of you guys realize this, but the fishing was not easy and it was not that great over on Lake Ray Roberts. Like, this is the first thing that anyone should talk about. These guys were not going out there and they were not catching 50 fish a day. You know, they weren't catching 100 fish a day. As a matter of fact, on the very last day of the tournament, the guy who caught the most fish was Trey McKinney. He caught 8 fish all day long. And so in an 8-hour day, he caught 8 fish. That's 1 an hour. And even with that being said, of the 56 anglers that fished that event, there was only 12 anglers who caught a 5-fish limit each and every single day. There was a ton of guys coming in with 2 fish, 3 fish, 4 fish, not a ton of limits. And so when it comes to the commentary that we saw so much of during the Bass Live and even over on Fox, the big thing that I wanted you guys to know, there wasn't a tremendous amount of fish catches. And the thing is that the guys over at Bass, they do not, I can tell you with 100% no doubt in my mind, they do not want to have to sit there and commentate. They do not want to have to sit there and talk the whole time. If they can just go out to watching people fish, catch fish, and then react to it, that is what they want to do. Just look at them when they go up into the northern part of the country, where you do get into situations where guys are catching fish after fish after fish. They aren't sitting there talking the whole time. They may be talking about what's happening, but they are showing a lot of those fish catches. Now, let's fast forward again to the Classic. There wasn't a whole lot of guys catching fish. You know, and the best guys out there, for example, Trey McKinney on the last day catching 8 fish. If everybody was catching them as good as Trey McKinney, that means at most you're going to have 80 fish catches over the course of like the 7-hour live event that they did. And 80, you know, that's 10 fish catches basically an hour, 10 or 12. A fish catch takes about 30 seconds. Okay, so you're talking about like 5 or 6 minutes per hour of fish catches maximum that you're going to see. So I just want the fans to honestly be like real, like just understand like the fishing wasn't phenomenal. And that is also assuming that they get all of these live feeds back. Like just because someone caught 7 or 8 fish doesn't mean that they actually get that footage, because it has to go up to the satellites. Like, it's all via internet and whatnot. So if it doesn't work, they're not going to get it. They're not going to be able to show it. Okay, so the other thing with all that is a lot of guys said, well, they should have just showed them fishing. Well, listen, I have been tournament bass fishing since I was 15 years old, so over 20 years. I've also been in marketing for over 10 years now. And I've been doing full-time content creation for the last 4 years. And so I am a very analytical person. And one thing that I have noticed when it comes to YouTube in general is that if I were to show a video of myself literally just fishing, you see the engagement go down greatly. If I show that exact same footage, but with commentary over it, it plateaus. It literally holds people's engagement. So the reason that a lot of the commentary was even happening was, 1, there wasn't a lot of fish catching. And 2, a lot of those guys are smarter and understand that simply having some commentary is going to keep fans engaged. So to me, I really liked when they had a couple of those guys up, when they had guys like Chris Zaldain kind of talking about the fishery and how it's set up, when they had some other anglers talking about it. I enjoyed that aspect. The one thing that I do wish that they would have done is not showed so much of the actual people talking and showed the fishing while we had commentary. I think that they did that a little bit, but I think that that's what they could have really delve into. Put up a 4 box of 4 different anglers fishing and had the commentary in the background. And look, when guys like Coach Prime get on there, that's a big win for Fox. That's a big win for Bass. They're going to show that. And so I don't blame them for that, because that actually is a big deal. But the commentary, I think it has to happen. They don't want to just show complete silence while people fish, because I'm telling you right now, I know from what I've seen on YouTube, that engagement will go down in a heartbeat. Now, I do wish they would have got a little bit more involved with like a little bit more specifics of what happened out on the fishery, but that also comes down to the angler themselves. The angler who is being filmed has to decide what all information that they want to give up. And this is something that I didn't really think about until really recently. I have filmed with a lot of different professional anglers, and guess what? They tell me all the time that Bass Live and live, not just bass, but on both sides, Major League Fishing and Bass Live, they don't always necessarily love the live aspect, because these are guys who have spent a long time, sometimes really long, on certain fisheries to find little areas, little rock piles, little things here and there. And if they give those up in a Bass Live, it's done. It's done for forever. And some of these guys are fishing on their home lake. I mean, Lee Livesey fishes on that lake a lot, on Ray Roberts, and that happens across the board. So these anglers do have to decide what all information they want to give up. And I'm not going to put the blame on them if they don't want to put a ton of information out there. But I do wish that we would get more specifics here and there about the fishery as a whole, with basically the video of people fishing while it was happening. I'm with you when I say I don't want to watch people talking about it, but I definitely think commentary is good. It's going to keep people engaged. So I think a lot of people should realize that. The other thing, probably the second most thing that I heard about, and this is actually going to be a really quick point, is guys said, man, there was way too many commercials. When it was on Bass, when it was on Fox, no matter what, there was way too many commercials. And look, we are all the same when it comes to commercials, right? I hate commercials. We live in a DVR society and we live on a YouTube society, where you can skip through a lot of commercials, or you can DVR things where you can skip through the commercials. That is what we are used to. But I heard a statistic that on Bass Live over the Classic, if they had about 9 or 10 minutes of fishing, they would have about 3 or 4 minutes of commercials, which seems like a lot, but guys, that's literally the national average. Like, you look up across the board, ESPN, Fox, any major network out there, and you're talking about 25, 28, 30% of the total running time is commercials. That's legitimately their business. That is how they pay bills. And so for people to get on there and complain about the commercials, look, I get it, because nobody likes commercials, me included, but it wasn't any more than the normal. And a good thing to look at here as well, you know, Scott Martin has a TV show that he puts out on TV. And typically, I think like a year after he puts those things out on TV, he will take that content and he puts it on YouTube. Well, he makes a half an hour long television show. But when he puts it on TV, when he puts it on YouTube, it's 20 minutes long. Okay? Which means in a half an hour long show, about 30% of that show, when it's shown on TV, is commercials. So when it comes to the commercials, this is something to me that is I'm fine with, because it's the normal. Like all these companies, that's how the whole thing goes around. Like they have to make money somehow. So I don't think that there was any crazy amount of commercials. The next thing that I heard a lot of people complain about is weigh-in times. You know, the weigh-in was a couple of hours long, which I get it. It's long, but I do want people to to understand something here. One, the classic weigh-in times have almost always been pretty long. Like almost always been pretty long. And the other thing is this is a different event. It is a production, and not to mention all of these anglers who have gotten to go, who have qualified for the classic. Like this is the one thing that they work for all year long. Like you ask any guy who's fishing the Elite Series, you ask any guy who's fishing Major League Fishing, all they want to do is get to the championship event, the classic and the Red Crest. Why? Because one, they pay out a lot of money. Two, this is the most eyeballs that these tournaments are going to have all year long. They are the most eyeballs. So with that being said, I actually like that Bass gives every angler an opportunity to speak, because that guy has worked all year long to be able to get into position where he can go to the classic stage, he can talk about his sponsors, he can talk about his family, he can talk about his fishing day. I'm 100% fine with that, because I see it as this guy has spent a ton of time to get there. Why just push him off? You know, and the thing is that we all have the opportunity to not watch it, right? We all want to watch it, but we all have the opportunity to not watch it. If you don't want to sit there and watch it, you don't have to. You know, I was able to watch a decent amount of the weigh-in on Friday, a decent amount on Sunday. Saturday, I didn't watch any of it. I didn't watch any of it because I was hanging out with my family, and I wanted to spend time with them, and I simply got on that night and saw the results. Like, we have that choice. You do not have to watch it. But I do like, honestly, that Bass gives them an opportunity to speak. I think that that's a really good thing. And I think that people should get behind that. Like, if I'm being 100% honest with you guys. All right, let's talk about the next thing. I saw a ton of people talk about this, which was, I don't even know who these anglers are. There's a ton of guys talking about, like, I don't know who these guys are. They're talking about different names who are fishing. There's guys saying, I don't even know who these guys are. Look, this is pretty standard among sports. You know, like, it's very rare that anglers are in a sport for a long, long time. Now, there's always exceptions. You know, your Tom Brady's of the world, your Aaron Rodgers of the world, your LeBron James of the world. But anyone who competes in one of the major sports, the Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, whatever it may be, they're not always around. Now, in bass fishing, it has really become the exact same thing. And the thing that I think a lot of anglers are a little bit used to is that, you know, if you think about when the Elite Series started in like 2006-ish, really up until the mid-teens, like 2015, 2016, they had a lot of anglers that were fishing during that time that were there for the entire time, like the entire time. And one of the biggest things, they didn't kick off a lot of guys back then. Also, they didn't bring near as many guys on. The thing about it is that if you wanted to qualify for the elites back then, you fished the Bassmaster Opens, which is no different than it is today. But back in the day, they wouldn't take as many anglers, and about half of the anglers that actually qualified for the Elite Series didn't go. And the reason that they didn't go is because they couldn't afford $100,000 a year in expenses and entry fees. So you had maybe 3 or 4 guys every year that were coming onto the Elite Series. And there was time on the Elites where they wouldn't kick anyone off. The field just got bigger. Like when it started, it went from like 101, then it was 106, then it was 112, you know? And so like they kept getting bigger. They wouldn't always kick people off. And now we have gotten into a position with Bassmaster specifically where they are basically kicking people off every year. Like if you cannot requalify for the elites through the Elite Series, you get kicked off, which I think is a phenomenal thing. That is literally what makes the Elite Series elite. That is what makes them the best of the best. So with that being said, you're always going to have new faces coming in. You're always going to have new faces coming in unless they can stick around and do really well. And that's a good thing for the sport because you want people who are on the outside knowing there's an opportunity if they can fish well enough to get in. And so I think that that's really, really important. And I think that that's something that, look, we all loved watching the Van Dams, the Skeet Reese years, like all those years where it was like, it was the same guys in the top 10, the Edwin Evers, like I loved that watching that stuff, you know, but fishing has changed a lot. There's more people. We've actually done what people wanted to do 10 years ago, which is grow the sport. I mean, just think about, I used to fish in college and in high school, and I would go to an event in New York where there was 25 boats, a college event where there was 25 boats. And that was not even that long ago. That was like 2011, 2012. Nowadays, those college tournaments literally have 300 boats. Like it has grown, and that's exactly what we as the bass fishing community wanted, was growth in the sport. So I guess I don't know the big complaint there about new faces. It just is what it is. Okay, the last thing that I want to talk about before I jump off here is forward-facing sonar. This is obviously a huge thing in bass fishing, and I don't know that it's not ever going to be a big thing. When it comes to forward-facing sonar, I really, like, there's no denying that you need it on your boat if you want to be a decent tournament fisherman. Now, I do think that forward-facing sonar, like if you are by heart, I'm a traditional bass fisherman, I'm a shallow water guy, I think it will distract you and hurt you more than it will help you. And we see that with guys like John Cox. John Cox doesn't even mess with it. Therefore, he is spending more time out there on the water, doing his craft, finding shallow water fish, and not distracting him with the forward-facing sonar. Then you have guys on the opposite end of the things, that they are all forward-facing sonar. Now, personally, I love what forward-facing sonar has taught us about bass. Like, it's really cool to, like, the things that we know from 10 years, like, what we know now compared to 10 years ago is vastly different when it comes to bass fishing, which is really cool. Now, with that being said, I understand that forward-facing sonar is boring to watch. And I do think that bass needs to try as hard as they can, and Major League Fishing, to show the screens when they can. Because it seems like it doesn't always happen, and that does make it a lot more engaging. Like seeing a fish hot on a jerkbait is actually pretty exciting, especially if you've done it a lot. It's almost like watching your topwater right before it's about to blow up. But it's just different because it's on a screen. Now again, I understand that it's not always the sexiest thing. And I personally, I think that it would be cool if bass did about a 50-50 mix of, and I don't know how they would do this. I think that they should do a full tournament that is, I think they should have 8 or 10 tournaments a year, you know, an even number where half of those tournaments you can use forward-facing sonar to the extreme, the other half, no forward-facing sonar. And literally just 50-50 the entire year. I don't necessarily love the 50% in a tournament, but I do because it kind of gets messy towards the end of things. Like when you get further into the days, it kind of gets messy. But if you did, hey, this whole tournament, you're allowed to use it. This whole tournament, you can't use it at all. I think that that would be a really cool way of really showing how good all anglers are. Not just anglers who are good with forward-facing sonar, not just anglers who are good at shallow water. You really get some of the best. Guys that can do it, whatever it may be. Okay? So that's what I personally would do. And then when it came to the Classic, I think that you would just have to either you would have to do it by day to day to make it even, or you would do every other year. where this year is a forward-facing sonar year, next year, no forward-facing sonar year. I think that that's what I would do. And I think that also for bass, that would give you a little bit of a better insight as to the actual engagement of people. Do they prefer tournaments without forward-facing sonar more than they don't or do? Because a lot of guys will say, hey, I didn't even tune into it, you know, blah, 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 but obviously they did tune in it because they're talking about specific things that happened on it. So I don't necessarily know if people are always saying the truth. They're just behind their keyboards. And look, in this day and age that we are in with forward-facing sonar and just with social media, I don't love people that are extremely negative. If you're going to be negative, at least have something that maybe you could do that's better. That's all I'm saying. Have something like I said with the commercials, I don't know, maybe the best thing, the only really other option you have if you want less commercials is to go to a paid subscription model as far as Bass's business. And I don't know that that is what they want to do. So anyways, guys, thought I'd make this video. Throwing it out there. I'm just trying to look at it from all different angles and try to come up with solutions. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. I will see you guys tomorrow.